How are you guys doing? My name is Ben, and today we're going to be talking about the Cannons Lacrosse Club, or as some of you may know them as, the Boston Cannons. Now, before we get into this video, I just want to say thank you to all of you that watched my history of the MLL video. I know there were glaring issues in there. I know there are a ton of teams that I missed or skipped over, but I do plan on doing an individual video for every single team that played in the MLL. I did the research for this video, and I discovered like 2 more teams that I hadn't heard of. I know one of them was the Hamilton Nationals, which I don't remember at all. Comment below if you guys remember the Hamilton Nationals. Really cool team, really interesting history, and the idea behind them that they were like a Canadian/Native American team, super awesome. Also, if you guys have suggestions for future topics or a team you want to see first, comment them down below. I can try to prioritize them. I really do appreciate you guys' nice comments. Part of the reason why I pushed through this video as fast as I could was because of those nice comments from you guys encouraging me and giving your suggestions. So I love to hear your feedback. If you guys like the videos, make sure that you're liking and subscribing. And now, on to the video. The Boston Cannons. They are the only team from the original 6 MLL set of founding teams to have not moved during their tenure, the last team to win the MLL championship, as well as being the only franchise to survive the ill-fated PLL merger. Not to say that the merger was a bad thing, it's just my belief that some of these legendary franchises could have been handled in a better way. Many of you know from my previous video, I'm a big Denver Outlaws fan, and I thought that team could have been carried over just as much. The Cannons have a very good storied history, but there are many teams in the rest of the MLL that also could be brought back one day, and I hope they are, although as the years go on, the chances get slimmer and slimmer. And with the PLL looking for home team voting and establishing a city for each and every franchise, there is hope that some of these MLL franchises that we all grew up and know and love could be seen again one day. Only time will tell with that. I am going to put a link down below to the PLL voting. It may already be over though. I know that they announced some of the finalists at the PLL All-Star game, but I still haven't seen those myself. I'm curious to see where they go. They better put a team in Denver. I don't see a way that they couldn't put a team in Denver. I will be very salty if they don't. But with all that fluff out of the way, let's get into the history. Founded in 2001 as one of the original 6 teams making up the MLL, their first season was not a success, going 3-11, yet they still made the playoffs due to the weird bracketing system that the MLL had at the very beginning. Their division rival, the Bridgeport Barrage, a team I also forgot about, didn't know about, I had never heard their name before. Their division rival, Bridgeport Barrage, went 3-11 as well, though losing on tie breaks. That's how the Cannons made it into the playoffs that year. They would lose in the first round to the Lizards, who would eventually go on to beat the Bayhawks in the championship. Again, I made some mistakes in my history of the MLL. The original 6 teams, as stated, are the Baltimore Bayhawks, the Boston Cannons, Bridgeport Barrage, Long Island Lizards, New Jersey Pride, and the Rochester Rattlers. Though the Cannons would improve their next season, going 7-8, yet still coming in second place in their division, going to the playoffs yet again to play against the Long Island Lizards, who they would lose to yet again for the 2nd year in a row. Though the Lizards would go into the championship, and the Bayhawks would beat them, getting revenge for the previous year. In the following year of 2004, the Cannons would go on to have their best year to date, going 8-4 and making it to their first championship game, although they would lose to the Bridgeport Barrage 13-11. Be the peak of the Cannons Lacrosse Club history to this point. Over the next couple of years, they would mightily struggle as new teams got introduced to the league. These teams being the Chicago Machine, who later became the Ohio Machine, the Los Angeles Riptide, the San Francisco Dragons, Denver Outlaws, and as well as the Bridgeport Barrage moving to Philadelphia, which makes more sense. I vaguely remember hearing about the Philadelphia Barrage, but they also were a short-stinted team. Just gonna throw a little disclaimer out there. This era of the MLL's history is very weird and chaotic. When researching this, you realize just how crazy it was with every team moving around, and it kind of highlights the issues the MLL ran into in their later years. Having home-based teams really puts a strain on resources. Guys traveling everywhere was very expensive, and it cut into those players' paychecks. Through the growth of the league, the Cannons would build one of the most passionate fan bases in the MLL. The New England area had always been known for lacrosse and is one of the breadbaskets of the sport. It produced great fans and a strong, passionate fan base for them to continue on with. They slowly were building with this fan base to their eventual goal of winning an MLL championship. In 2008, the Cannons made a move that got them that much closer, drafting Paul Rabel first overall, a team first player with skills unseen since the days of the Gate brothers. Paul Rabel is part of why the Cannons are remembered so fondly, and the first few years he was in the MLL, he was a dominating force. I'm going to try to throw some highlights up here. You can see just how dominant he is, but likely most of you guys know just who Paul Rabel is and how insane he was the first 5-6 years of his career. Not to say he wasn't good in the latter years, but there's something about youth that just added to it, and he was unstoppable. And you'll see as we continue this video how big of an impact this man had on the Boston Cannons franchise. After years of building, in 2011, the Cannons would finally reach the Lacrosse mountaintop, defeating the Hamilton Nationals 10-9. The leader of this great triumph, Paul Rabel, earned the MLL League MVP award along with the Offensive Player of the Year award. The Cannons were the 5th charter franchise to win the title, and although their ceiling seemed unending, they would not win another championship for a decade. 2012 would look to be a similar year to most people. The Cannons finished with a 9-5 record. Paul Rabel led the team with a record-breaking 72 total points and 27 goals, which also led the league with the runner-up having 59 total points. Though despite these achievements, the Cannons would fall in the semifinal of the playoffs and struggle from here on out. From here, it was downhill. The Cannons would go 5-9 in 2013 and then 6-8 through 2014. A future franchise that looked like the next great New England dynasty quickly stalled out. Then came the real cherry on top to this sentiment. In 2015, Paul Rabel was traded to the New York Lizards for some players and draft picks. This would immediately bite the Cannons in the butt, as the Lizards would go on to win the MLL championship the same year, with Rabel as the MVP of the playoffs.
Opportunities, it's going to be hard to score 6-on-6.
Rabel sends it out in front. Pinnell with 5 on the shot clock. Nice feed again, and this time, there it is!
The Rabel era was over, and for the next 5 years, they would struggle to find any success. Their lowest point coming at the end of the 2017 season, with a record of 3-11, tying their worst ever record from the 2001 inaugural season. The Cannons continued to struggle, making a few playoff appearances here and there, but never getting back up to that peak of a championship. In 2018, Paul Rabel started the PLL. And although some people weren't sure, this was the end for the MLL as a whole. In 2020, the COOF pandemic would strike the US, leading the MLL to need to find a solution on what their upcoming season would look like. They settled on a 5-game regular season, played over the course of 7 days. This would set up the seeding for all the playoffs to come. The Cannons finished 4th out of 6 teams, securing the bottom seed. Match was set, Cannons versus Outlaws. Unfortunately, a player from the Bayhawks on the other side of the bracket, both those teams were shut down completely, and the Outlaws versus Cannons matchup became the championship game. To this point, the Outlaws had only lost 1 game in the 5-game seeding, and that was to the Cannons. Things were setting up for a truly legendary championship game. And what many didn't know, this would be the last championship game of the MLL's history. The game would prove to be legendary, and although I'm still pretty salty about it, the Cannons went on to beat the Outlaws 13-11, securing their 2nd championship in franchise history. I remember watching this game, especially during the pandemic. It was a nice escape from things. Still really salty about that Boston, but it is really cool to cap off the history of the MLL with the Cannons winning a championship. At the end of 2020, the situation was untenable. The MLL merged with the PLL. In simpler terms, the MLL ceased to exist, and the PLL got a lot of their intellectual property. PLL also announced that the Cannons would be rebranded as the Cannons Lacrosse Club instead of the Boston Cannons, and would become the league's 8th team. This would be their first attempt at a legacy team coming from the MLL to the PLL, but so far I think it has done wonders for their brand. The Cannons are a recognizable name and have a passionate fan base still in the Boston area, and I'm sure with the PLL City voting, they're going to Boston. There's no way they would move them anywhere else, and Boston has always been a fantastic area for lacrosse. I know that when they have the national title out there in New England Stadium, it is a madhouse. They get so many people in, and the people of New England absolutely love the sport of lacrosse. The move to keep the Cannons was likely because of the Rabel brothers' love for the franchise. Paul Rabel always had a special part in his heart just for the Boston Cannons. He knew of their storied franchise and their brand likability and the fan base that came along with it. but was an absolute dream for someone like Paul Rabel, who wanted to grow the Premier Lacrosse League. So here we are in the modern day. Over the past couple of years, the Cannons have struggled a lot to make a real impact in the PLL, but in certain areas, they have advanced that legacy further. Paul Rabel was traded to the Cannons and teamed up with Lyle Thompson to become one of the craziest duos to ever grace the field. Both of them, the plays they put together were just fantastic, and Lyle Thompson, along with Paul Rabel, are two generational talents that will never be seen again, and to have them on the same field, same uniform, same goal, was really incredible to watch. Although the team still has struggled to make the playoffs and to really have an impact in the Premier Lacrosse League, but only time will tell. Though they were never the most successful or had the most championships under their belt, the Cannons' history highlights how drafting a single generational player can change the trajectory of a franchise forever. The location of the franchise helped a lot as well, being the dead center of Lacrosse's heartland, providing many young fans who aspire to play for their franchise one day. And well, those dreams are still a reality today, as the Cannons continue to chase their first PLL championship. And I, for one, am excited to see how this goes forward. They have to win one eventually. The lacrosse gods are smiling kindly down on them. Their history and their story as a franchise is unlike any today in the PLL, and going forward, they will remain as unique as they are today. So thank you guys for watching. This was a brief history of the Cannons Lacrosse Club, and I hope you found it entertaining and informational. If you have any suggestions, any things I skipped over, make sure to put those down in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. I like to hear you guys' feedback, and I want to improve my work as much as I can, and I can't get that without feedback. So again, guys, thank you for watching today's video. Thank you for the support you've been showing me on the previous videos. I'm going to continue to make these. If you guys keep giving me feedback, I can make sure to prioritize certain teams you'd like to see. I'd like to do the Outlaws next because I'm impartial to them, but if you guys have a team that is more interesting, let me know in the comments down below, and thank you again for watching.